Recording.
Good. Dr. Yahav.
You fasting? Good morning, everybody. Fasting every day. Today is Daf Kuftalet.
I heard it. I said 3 months you might be.
Yeah, right.
Stalin. The two were due.
Well, you can't fast all, especially when true because the
Somebody mentioned something. I don't know.
All right, that is 7 days in between. On Shabbos, 6 days. All right. Good morning, everybody. Today is Daf Kuftalet. We left off. We left off. Sure. Thank you. We had a question of a person selling somebody. So if a person just says, "I'm selling you a base kur afar," so does he mean like the expression base kur afar exact, right? Or does he mean a base kur afar more or less? In other words, is there a leeway if it's a little more, a little less? So what do we say? We try to learn out from the two cases of the Mishnah, of the Reish and the Seifa, since each one you could actually make an opposite inference. So therefore, we did not learn anything from our Mishnah, and now the Gemara is going to go ahead and make a second attempt to understand. So around 6 lines from the top, Tashma, come and listen. Base kur afar ani meicher lecha. I'm selling you a base kur afar of dirt kufdal and aleph, 6 lines from the top. Base kur afar ani meicher lecha. Kid base kur afar ani meicher lecha. Or he says like a base kur afar ani meicher lecha. Or he says hein chaser hein yaser ani meicher lecha. A little more, a little less. I'm selling to you. Safilu peiches revea lasa aiser revea lasa higiu. Even as long as there's more. Right, there's a little bit, less than a quarter of a kav per sa, right, which we said is 1/24th, or actually a little bit extra. Or he added a little bit, less than a quarter kav per sa. It is a good sale. So what do you see from over there? Stama, right? The stama expression, which was expression number 2. Gesundheit was expression number 1 of just base kur afar. Stama nami. Right, it's like give or take, as long as it's within 1/24th of the promised amount, that should work. So our answer is no, maybe that's not a good proof. Why? Maybe up there is just explaining it. Ezu base kur. What is a base kur? Shehu ke base kur. What is a base kur? That's like a base kur. Kagai, and that's for instance, and therefore that's only, those were actually also all one expressions. It was not really that case. It was rather just saying that it is just like us. Gemara said, but that's not true. Why, if it's only one case, why does it say, right? Why did it say base kur afar ani meicher lecha ke base kur afar ani meicher? Why just say base kur afar, right? Ke base kur is just like ke base kur. Why does it keep saying ani meicher lecha? Elav shmamina. Rather, indeed, learn from this brisa. Stama, if the person says base kur afar ani meicher lecha, is the same thing as kein chaser and yaser dami, and therefore it can be a little bit off as long as it's less than 1/24th off. Then shmamina, indeed, learn from there.
Head that kur can never be more. It rarely is more, so you don't have to be machzir.
So ke is right. Ke means just like, as long as it's within the close to.
Not more than.
And so is the express. Right? No, it can even be a little more than. It could be a little, as long as it's within 1/24th.
Be machzir because it's a ke.
Well, right. In that sense, you don't have to. The only time you have to be machzir is when he says, "I'm selling it to you, base kur, as measured by your rope." That means bedafka. But over here, we learn from this brisa that stomach, if he just says a base kur up, it doesn't have to. I'm selling you an acre. It can be around an acre. It can be a little more, a little less, as long as it's less or more or less than 1/24th. Fine. Next case. So then we said in the case in the Mishnah. So let's say the guy sold him a little too much land. Okay, and so he goes ahead, and let's say there's more, so he has to return him the land. But let's say if he gives him the land, the land to the seller is going to be useless, because what's he going to do with a small parcel of land that he can't build a house on, he can't really plow it, so it's useless. I wish I would have just included it right in the sale and got a little more money for it, right? What do I do with 500 feet? So our answers, so then we say, no, and we did it for the purposes of to enhance, to help the seller, right? Because we don't want the seller to get a small 500, square foot back that he has nothing to do with. He can't build on it. He can't, do anything with it. It's only useful to the larger land. So we said the office Amrina. So we said is only to enhance basically the position of the seller. In other words, we say that the buyer also has to buy that. I mean, so regardless, only say that. However, we never do something for the benefit of the buyer. In other words, let's say the buyer is getting more land, right? We don't do anything, or like less land. We don't do anything for his benefit. So let's see if that's true. Tanya, we're learning Bryce. So we say piches shivas kavinu machzalakur, right? So let's say he says,
Amen. Wow. So beautiful.
Thank you. So let's say this guy says, I'm selling you a base core, right? More or less. And he gave him, right? Piches shiva kavinu machzalakur. Right? And then he gave him, let's say, too much or too little. He gave, right? It does work. However, and now if it's even more than that,
more or less than the 24th.
that is 1/24th, right? A quarter per saw, right? Because there's six.
Even 7.5 is the 24th. 7.5 kavmi is the 24th.
Right. I think 7.5 kav. I would use my calculator, but it's videoing. But if you do, let's see, there's 6 times there's 180. What's 180 divided by 7.5?
Randy knows it by heart. Oh, where'd you go?
80 divided by 7.5.
Is that 1/24th? Yeah, right. So 1/24th. That's the shear, right?
So it's changing the lashon a little bit.
Well, it just means because if he, in other words, we say that's the ratio. We're soon going to see two things. There's the ratio and there's the actual amount of land, right? We're soon going to see that if I'm selling you 1,000 acres and it's 1/24th, so that's a significant amount, right, of land, which is 1/24th, right? To give you, a couple hundred acres, So which we're about to go see now. So if it's let's say Higil. However, let's say the discrepancy is more than that, right? So kaifin es hamaycher limkor vesalokech likach, right? We force the seller to sell. Now, when you say we force the seller to sell, it sounds like it's for the benefit of the buyer, right? If I'm forcing the seller to go ahead and sell that extra piece, sounds like the seller really would prefer to keep it, but now we make him sell it to the buyer. So what do you see over there? We see that it's really done on behalf of the seller. So Gemara says, no, Hasam Kagain, the Havi Yikarame Karav is Ol Hashta. Now, in the beginning, we say over there that the prices were high, and now the price went down. Damrina lay, Iari Avis lay, Havli, because it was the Hasha. In other words, they're saying that the seller's saying, yeah, I'll buy it, I'll buy the extra off you, but I'm not buying it to the purchase price, which was dated January to that amount on January 1st. I'm buying you for the discounted price. So therefore, that is done on behalf of the seller. It's not the fact that we let him buy it, but once he's buying, we allow him. We force the seller basically, because you wanted to sell the land, we force the seller to sell them at the new low price, the extra amount, and not the higher original contracted price that goes on the extra land. It says, but the Brisa says when he's paying him, it's by the contracted price for the extra amount. So the Gemara says, no, that's a slightly different case. Hasam could go into Havile, Zula Mikara. Over there was a cheaper price in the beginning. The Karli Hasha now it got more expensive. So the seller is saying, yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll sell the extra and sell it to me now because it got more expensive. But no, we forced him to sell it at the original price, the cheaper price, which was the contracted price. Fine. 2 dots. Then we said different fields, right? A fields is 7.5 kav, and other areas the gar is even smaller. So Amar Rav Huna, Tisha kav and Sha'amru. These 9 kav, right? Sha'amru, right? And the 9 kav were based from the Mishnah, right? What it says over there. Base Tisha, right? So he says Shim Shayar Basada, base Tisha Kavin, right? In other words, that already 9 kav to grow ahead in 9 kav, that's already a useful area. All right, 9 kav is a useful area when it comes, let's say, so in other words, if the seller is left over with 9 kav.
What is the border? I mean, the breakdown. When minimum.
But so over here, in other words, we say that remember, if the seller is left with too small of a parcel,
correct.
So then we force the buyer to go ahead and just buy the rest of the land. But if the amount that's left is at least 9 kav,
he doesn't have to.
Then it's already significant. That's the plot. That someone can go ahead and build a Georgian on. It's it's a 30, or in our neighborhood 30. In other areas, it's a 25 by 125 lot, and you can go ahead and sell it as a plot for a house. So Tisha Kamashamru v'afilu bibika gedayla. Even if we're talking about a bika gedol, so now I was like this. Let's say the guy sold 500 acres, right? And the small amount that's left over, there's extraage, the overage, right, is less than 1/24th. However, it's a significant amount of 9 kav that could be useful for him to go ahead and sell to somebody else. So it says, Rav Nachman Amar, no. The amount to keep is only each core. So if he sells him a base core of 5 base core, so if it's only 9 kav left over, then we'd force the buyer to pay that. But if it was, let's say, 5 times 9, 45 was 45 kav area, then that's only considered to be significant. The Ika Milsa Isera, the Tisha Kavin, Hadri. And if anything more than the quarter kav, right, that a quarter kav per saw, right? So then, Hadri, then he would go. The extra amount is returned. So Eisvei roller of Nachman Shem Shai Basada base Tisha Kavin, right? So if he went ahead and he left over an area that was it was left over 9, so that can go back. Delay Zavalei Karai, right? So Kuraim is not talking about a face. So Kuraim, as we see over here, that even 9 kav come back, even when he's selling him a large field. So it's not 9 kav per every base core. It's 9 kav total, right? Which would be a kasha, right? Which would be a kasha on Rav Nachman. Right, Rav Nachman was the second shita, right? Because he says no, even if multiple. So he answers no. Lo, that case only talking about the 7 core. The reason why that the 9 is because it's only referring to 1 base core. And similar, we're going to ask the same question. Bagino, and we said, let's say a garden, you need less space. It's not, you're not plowing, you're planting, right? It's a little different. Base chatzi kav, right? So is it lav? Does have a sign? It's 2 saw, and it's still only the amount that, but if it's a chatzi kav per saw, it would be a full base kav. Once again, low the Zavalei said it's only 1 saw, and therefore the actual overage or useful remaining would be a chatzi kav. And Diva Rebbe Kiva, according to Rebbe Kiva, my love the Zavin le saw. Right, when he says base rova, there's only a quarter kav. So it's now referring to a case of where he sold him a full saw, right, which would be more. That percentage would be more than a quarter kav. And once again, where it's low, the zavile katsi saw. Now, where only was a half of saw. Now comes a couple of questions. So, boy, Ravashi, Sadev and Nasa Gina. What about? So we have different percentages. Let's say if your field is going to be plowed, you need a larger space to be useful, garden and smaller. So what about it was a Sadev and Nasa Gina? So it basically was sold as a field, but now it's used as a garden. So maybe I can use a smaller amount that's still useful to the seller, and therefore maybe even if it was smaller, I can go ahead and say, "Hey, seller, I don't have to buy it from you because it's useful as a garden." Or the opposite, Gina, right? It was too small, but now it's being used as a field. So right now it's too small for a field, but originally it was okay as a garden. So Gemara says, Teku does not give a teretz. And finally, Tana Imhaya Samakosadehu, if we say, now let's say I sold a field, and we say if we leave over too small, it's useless. But let's say it's next to my other field. So I can just join that with my other field. And now it has use because it's next to my other field. Right? It's not a small independent field. It could be joined with my other field, and those two could be sold together. Right? So even a small amount, then we don't say we force the buyer to go ahead and pay for the rest. Rather, we can say, hey, you know what? I'm not buying the rest. You keep the land. Seller, you're going to say it's too small to do anything. No, it's not too small because you have the adjacent property. So, so of course, let's say, yes, it is adjacent, but there's a pin in between. Is it considered to be a separation? And therefore, we can force the buyer to take it or not? Or what about the stream of water that's going on? Does that go ahead and separate the two? Or what about derech harabim? Let's say there's a public way that goes in between the two fields, right? Is that a hafsaka? Or Rivka, the Dikla, Maushitafsik, or a row of palm trees that separate the two. Is that considered to be a separation or not? Once again, the Gemara leaves us in a takeover.
There are all these takers, if you had over last year, Daf will have takers.
Yeah.
Nowadays, if you go to the post it, he'll say, take one.
No, taker is,
Yeah.
I think it's case.
He's saying that they would still.
They could like
That's
give you
That's when you get.
Taker is case by
That's when you
case.
get an answer that say, they speak about it. It's like, yeah.
No, I mean,
They don't
it's
give-
more individual case. The taker is
Right.
like, you can't generalize.
Right. So in this case, they don't know in other words, which do we analyze it from this side or this side? So
Yeah,
therefore,
each one
we don't
brings
know.
different.
Right. It's not just the quarter that he returns it. Let's say the discrepancy was more. Ella kol ha'maiser, any extra amounts. The Gemara says, "Klapilai." I understand. The first thing you should be returning is the extra amount, and the question is, do you also return like the 1/24th? So instead of the wrong order. So Gemara says, "No." Tani Ravin bar Rav Nachman. It's not just the extra amount that he returns it, Ella as kol harivin kula. It's not just the extra amount to bring it down to 1/24th, but rather the entire 1/24th plus the extra amount that is returned to the seller.
You return it all.
Right, return it, and then you return it all. The Gemara just questioned that really, is obvious they returned the extra. So why'd you say, in the weird way, right? You should have said, not just the extra you return, but also the 1/24th. Instead, it says, right, not just the 1/24th you return, but also the extra. So the Gemara was just asking, it seems to say in the wrong order, and he says you're taka right, therefore amend it and just say the other way. It's not just the extra, but also the other part. All right, we'll stop here. There's the Shem. We'll go ahead and continue from here, and we'll have everyone have a wonderful day.